Hello and welcome to another one of my lives where I'm shamelessly plugging Reboot Hiring and still celebrating its launch. Today I am joined by Gary Zurnamer from Vouch, all the way from Australia. So
All the
thank
way.
you. All
Yeah,
the way,
thanks for
middle of the
having
night.
me.
You're welcome, you're welcome. So I wanted to get some background on you because I was quite
Yes.
fascinated. You've created Vouch, but you have no recruitment or employee branding or anything background. How did you end up here? What happened? What went down?
Yeah.
How did you
I'll tell
fall
you
into
about
our world? And are you sure you're okay?
I love it. I love it here. Um, so yeah, my background is not recruitment or employee branding. But funny story, both my parents were recruiters and HR people, so there's maybe a full circle
Ah,
moment there. But
that's how you snuck
uh
in.
exactly, yeah, it's genetic. But yeah, my background's marketing. I was a marketer, brand marketer, creative and content for a
Yeah,
long time, and then went into SaaS and landed up in an Australian company called Canva, building out
yeah.
their sort of B2B enterprise product and the team there. So
I'm a
Vouch
huge
was,
Canva user,
yeah, amazing, incredible
like
product,
everybody.
honestly.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, it's an incredible software. Vouch was built basically as a tool. Initially, we had this sort of broad-based concept around video and how do we create
Hmm.
almost automatic, fast, production-ready content, but all through the browser
Yeah.
and really seamlessly. And so the first use case for that was actually for marketers and customer teams. And so
Hmm.
basically building out testimonials and advocacy from customers. And so that was
Oh
our
yeah.
initial thesis when we built the business. And still a really, really great use case and sort of lots of amazing things around that. But we kind of spent about 18 months building that product out and that go to market and targeting that
Mm,
customer. Um, the name Vouch obviously was kind of part of that, but
mm,
we found all this data where we had these sort of recruitment, HR, talent teams that were really, really going out internally and building all this employee advocacy and internal
yeah.
content. So we followed a path, I think, which happens as a
Yeah.
startup is you kind of go down the path
Yeah.
which says, hey, we have this one thesis, but
Yeah.
actually these people are doing an incredible job. We
You
found that
follow
like
the
these
the gold dust, don't you? You kind of go, hang
totally,
on,
yeah,
actually
yeah,
there's a gap here. Let's go there rather than competing with
yeah.
all of them. Yeah. I hear you.
It felt that way. Yeah, rather gold dust, it's probably breadcrumbs
Oh,
in the
okay.
beginning of a startup, but it's like it was like
This
a
is true.
less
Beans on
less
toast.
gold initially. Yeah, exactly. But I think um we uncovered this sort of I mean we had lots of types of people using the product, but then we uncovered this really beautiful kind
Mm,
of employer brand and talent and recruitment marketing community that was really
yeah.
diving in. And we looked at things like usage data, like how much content were they creating in, where
Hmm.
was it being shared, and was it for helping them fill roles, and what was the feedback like? And so
Yeah.
yeah, we rabbit holed for about 6 months, sort of built, changed our messaging a little bit, and really thought about what those teams need, and made a bit of adjustments to the product roadmap, and sort of I guess about 18 months later, we're here now as a tool that's really dedicated for those teams, which is cool.
Yeah. So I sort of had a brief look. Of course, I probably should have done more research, but I'm going to ask you all this anyway. To me, it looked a little bit like Opus Clips, but quite specific. So
Yeah,
it's what are you doing? You're basically taking video, editing it, making it easier. Like, tell us what it does.
yeah,
But like, if I'm an
yeah. So
employer branding person and I'm like, God, please save me some time.
yeah, so we probably tend to come in at the point where people are like, hey, we've got like our EVP done, or we've got this really lovely like
Hmm.
values or brand proposition, and
Yep.
they're sort of like we need to scale our advocacy and our content efforts, and so we
Hmm.
step in, and we've built a lot of sort of proprietary technology in the browser. So there's no apps, there's no downloads, it's very easy, and so we thought
Ah,
about we
so they
basically
don't
built
have to
this.
log into something else.
No logins, there's
Oh my
nothing. We
God.
basically,
Where's the
yeah,
fun of making them log into something else?
I know exactly right. Why would we remove friction?
Yeah.
But we,
Imagine that in the world of recruitment. Oh,
exactly
so
right.
many
But
comments,
we
so
could
little time.
love to hear. Um, so we set up what we call like a basically Vouch recorder. So you can set up questions and guidance and prompts. We have
Mm,
something like this where it's live where you can record, but you can send a link out to one or sort of infinite number of people, and you ask them
yeah.
questions and guide them as if it was almost a directed recording experience.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
so they answer each one. We clip that out automatically. We transcribe it. We can put subtitles. We can, basically translate it to different languages. We then have AI and sort of manual editing side by side. So people will come
Yeah.
in and we can automatically pull the best quotes out and clip them up and then put them into
Yeah.
branded templates. So once an employer branding or recruitment marketing team send the link out and gets all this advocacy back,
Mm,
their library is very full. We then go through and say, hey, here's 50 great clips that you could use.
That's
We
so
then
cool.
help them, yeah, it's all on brand, it's all templated. It then goes into job ads, career sites, LinkedIn, TikTok, social, wherever they want to put it. But we
Yeah.
also build all that natively, so you can embed Vouch, and there's a bunch of great things that happen with that. So a lot of our customers, every job ad will have a relevant piece of content on there related to that role. So yeah, lots of really lovely
Yeah.
use cases of the product.
Makes sense. Any recruiters listening, please use that and then make sure you think about where you send them though. I'll never forget
Exactly.
years ago. Do you remember when Adele's song Hello came out? It was like
Yeah.
everywhere. And there was a creative agency, I'm sure it was here in London, did a spin on that they were hiring. And they did this amazing video, highly produced. And then they sent them to, I think it was via Facebook then, to the world's most boring LinkedIn job
Yeah.
description. It was like, oh, please think
It
it
just
through.
doesn't marry up, right?
That's
Yeah.
why I was joking about the friction, because it's we just love to do something creative and then go, and now you need to create an account to
Totally.
apply. Like,
Yeah.
stop
And
it,
fill in
people.
800 form fields. Yeah.
Oh, I saw one this morning that was asking, somebody's transgender, what sexuality they are. It's like, come on, just let them just send their CV in. Okay. Just,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know,
It's crazy. People don't understand why they have like low application rates as well. And I think often there's
mm,
just like a very clear point of friction. But
yeah, it
hopefully,
is.
yeah, we can help drive them to have some like more authenticity and understand the company a bit better, hear from existing employees. This advocacy piece
Yeah.
becomes really interesting when it's like, particularly the next generation, like a younger generation coming through that are basically going to ask all of these questions in the interview process. They get a lot of
Yeah.
context up front. So yeah,
Yeah, and I think we have these communication tools right near us. We want to be inquisitive. We want to see what's going on and what's genuine. You probably don't know I have a first book, The Robot Proof Recruiter, that I wrote in
nice.
2018 going into 19. So before the world went to shit. Um, because the 2020 is dumpster fire. But I talked about employee advocacy in there, and there was that incredible example of, do you remember Amazon got everybody, they forced people to do
Do they like?
advocacy?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it
That
was
was right.
really bad. All of a sudden, so I'm going to say Twitter rather than its current name, because it was that at that point.
Yeah.
And all of these people were jumping on saying, "Oh, I love working here," and everyone was like, that's just fake. It was too far the other way."
Yeah, you can see it immediately come through
Yeah.
when it's like scripted. There's an Aussie government piece of like advocacy content. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's
Oh,
like it's
yes.
one of the worst pieces of content ever produced, where it's basically like they've tried to hit on every trend and
Yes.
modern sort of like tagline that they could, and they've made everyone act in this fully produced corporate video. It's pretty horrific. So we
I
reference that as
remember
as
that.
anti-EV. Yeah.
Oh,
I
they
think
were
this was
also
the
like,
Department of Finance.
yes, yes, that's a few years back as well, isn't it? That was
Yeah,
absolutely
terrible.
shocking. So, do you kind of give a bit of advice? So, I'm just thinking of the 2020s dumpster fire. There's a lot of companies that are also going through layoffs. Like, what happens if they don't? Morale's down. There's a lot of job insecurity. Obviously, there's a lot of fear going into 2025. How's tech going to impact us? What do you suggest to your clients in that respect, or prospects, for that matter?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I think
how
like
can you use the tools?
well, existing customers, I think we do have a couple that have gone through really difficult periods. Like they've had
Mm,
the platform in place for employee advocacy and recruitment, and then those things stop, and then there's layoffs and redundancies, and sort of team morale is really
yeah.
low. It's interesting. Our customer success leader, like Jade, has been
Mm,
HR and people and talent teams for 15 plus years, and she is incredible with advice at those times where they often have to mobilize internal communication strategies and think about being more visible as leaders and
yeah.
increasing communication in tough times. And a lot of companies will shy away from that, but we've
Mm-hmm.
seen companies adopt Vouch and just say, "Hey, listen, obviously we're not hiring, so we're not going to use the platform there." But I think there is a real opportunity of leadership on camera and sort of talking to the team through these tough times. So
Yeah.
Jade is a big advocate of that with our customers, and they sort of pick that up really, really nicely. And so I think we find that they turn to internal and how do we increase engagement and make sure we sort of pick the team back up and align them and make sure
Mm,
there's clear rationale for why these decisions were made. And so communication becomes critical at those points. And I think we step in there a little bit as well.
yeah. Have you heard anything about Greg Wallace over here at all?
No.
Yeah. I hope these companies really train their people. So he's just been charged.
What happened
He's
there?
just been charged with sexual harassment by, I believe, a number of women, and he's basically just said it tends to be women of my kind of age that do this.
Wow,
And he's basically, yeah, he said that publicly.
that's
Yeah,
wild. Well,
no
who is he?
comms
I don't know.
training. Oh, he's run like MasterChef, and yeah,
Oh wow.
maybe it's not shown in Australia, but he's quite well known over here. But he's done a brilliant example of what you should not do when it comes to comms and leadership. It's
I mean, it sounds
yeah.
like it's pretty disastrous.
Oh, absolutely, totally.
Yeah.
So, as someone who's a creative, we did have a fun chat about your time in Soho in London back in the day.
Yeah.
How do
Should clarify for people what was going on there. It was working. Yeah.
very, very long hours and burning out, actually. But
Yeah.
on that, like, I think one of my concerns, I sometimes see the way that technology is being rolled out. I mean, it's really interesting in my world because there's a lot of recruiters aren't being replaced, and I'm like, but if they don't need as many people in the teams are smaller
Yeah.
because of the technology, kind of they are already being replaced. So I tend
Yeah.
to look at it differently, but I also worry about like humans burning out because I feel like it's always do more with less constantly. But as a creative, how do you see it? It must be quite tough for you in that
Yeah.
respect as well. Like, is
Yeah. I mean, we have to make decisions, product roadmap decisions basically around this every day, right? Like our
mm,
customers are communicating to hundreds of teams in different languages and like all these different things. And so,
yeah,
we have to make decisions like, do we create Gen AI avatars in
mm,
multi languages and a CEO update? And to this point, we've been pretty intentional about not doing that. And I think
like that.
I think our whole message is creating really beautiful, authentic human content should be easy, and we can take away a lot of
Mm,
the very tedious manual tasks of finding the best clip from that 2 hours webinar you did or these sort of things.
yeah,
And so I think we look to automate the stuff that isn't creative, it's kind of tedious.
mm,
And we, to this point, have not generated AI avatars of CEOs because I think then we lose the entire purpose of
yeah.
having a comm strategy where you've got someone that's basically a generated image of themselves talking. Now,
Yeah,
whether
so
that's
this
right or
is this
wrong,
is where they do the it makes me look like I'm
I,
speaking Spanish or something, which is never going to happen. I,
I mean,
that
yeah,
kind of a
like I
thing.
think, yeah, I don't know if it's
As I hate those.
my yeah. Well, my personal viewpoint is that the internet, well, the world and the internet doesn't need more crap on it. Like it doesn't need to be filled
Yeah.
with more content. It probably needs better curation and like better content. And I think like fundamentally, my co-founder Dave and I are aligned on that today. I mean,
Mm,
the reality is it's also what's best for the employee. So like if there is a
yeah.
world where a CEO records one vouch video and then that can go into 80 languages, maybe that is interesting and something we should think about. But I think if you're asking me about like what I think about AI and creativity, I would say like I hope that AI automates all of the worst and most tedious parts of the creative process and
Mm,
allows the best creatives to actually be the best creatives and go and create things and continue to bring
yeah.
lovely things to our world. I don't think I haven't watched anything today AI generated or heard anything music wise that is interesting to me, but I listen, I'm not rabbit holing that hard on it right now.
Yeah. Okay, you have to define rabbit holing now. You've said that a couple of times. So
So for
just
me,
for
like,
the,
well,
I know I'm
yeah,
Australian, but I
yeah,
live in England, and there's all this
yeah.
slang that's appeared since I left.
Rabbit holing is like when you kind of like, uh, how do I describe it? Go very, very deep on a particular
Okay,
subject or topic, a
gotcha.
long way down. It can happen
Yeah.
on the best of us on Instagram, but on topics that are not that important, or you can do it intentionally with research, I think.
Yeah, Instagram. You mean like doom scrolling?
Yeah, or a particular topic, and you just go down that path of
Yeah,
life.
it's really actually it's quite. No, I'm not going there. I'm not going to talk about the biases in that. What I was thinking though is like another area that's going to be impacted. I mean, if we've got AI, I mean, I've always laughed because I've used Otter for transcribing, and it does not like my Australian accent. It the e's and
No,
the e's and the a's, and I just sit there going, oh my god. So yeah, it may have improved. I haven't used it for a while. But also, I mean, if we are getting to that point where we can do these like voiceovers kind of thing, what happens to all the translators? All those amazing
yeah.
people who can actually speak two languages. I've tried to learn French about 3 times. I'm incapable. So I think they're incredible. And you just
Yeah.
think, what? Yeah, I don't know. Are we going to
But
burn humans
isn't that
out?
just like human? Isn't that just human learning. Like surely like the ability to learn multiple languages is still an amazing thing and like shows like
Hmm.
incredible capacity for learning. And like I'm not as
Maybe they can
maybe
do
I'm going
something
in.
else with it other than sit and do translations. Like I'm thinking, I can't think of
Yeah,
the name of
but
the
I do think
company
like
that
the
does them live.
manual. Yeah, I think the manual translations, like the automation of that, when we translate stuff automatically in video
Mm.
content, it's pretty accurate,
Yeah.
like 99% accuracy. We use multiple tools to kind of piece together the best translations.
I hope
Sorry,
that it
and
copes with
transcriptions.
an Australian accent okay as well.
Of course, yeah, we train the model purely on Aussie phonetics. But
It's
yeah,
absolute crap on American, but it's okay on
yeah,
Aussie.
it's awful for 80% of our customer base in the US. But I think yeah, I'm less doomsday about AI. I'm really hopeful that it is an incredible unlock for people to learn things faster or to like
Mm.
research better or to synthesize information so you can get the best bits out. But I would hope that as
Research
humans
better.
have we can talk about that. But I hope that as humans have done for a long time, they sort of still lean on communities and content and creativity and all these things to be interesting. I would hate for it all to be washed away by AI.
Yeah, particularly that curiosity. Like, I mean, when you look at the human skills, and I talk to recruiters about this all the time, that I see that we're losing critical thinking and curiosity, and actually really good listening as well. I see
Yeah.
that already going. So in
Wow.
I'm always talking about in Reboot Hiring, shameless plug, Christmas is coming. Buy it for your hiring managers. Um, the I talk about in there the intake, so the beginning of the process, the recruitment process. So the hiring manager's talking to the recruiter about the job. And
Yeah.
that's the bit that I see broken. And they're already producing technologies like, oh, we can do that for you. So no, you can't, because the managers haven't spent any time thinking about who they actually need to hire. So you could
Yeah.
choke in, okay, I need a Java developer, and it'll just come up with some BS. And then you're going to start recruiting on that and ruin your candidate experience and your employer brand because the reputation.
Right.
Like
That's interesting. So
it's,
you think it
yeah.
starts at the
Whereas
first
I think,
point, like,
yeah, everything that's broken in hiring is about that meeting because it's much more than just, okay, Gary, who do you need to hire? It's also, okay, when by, I need
yeah.
feedback at this time. This is why you're going to do this. I'm going to do this. This is how we're going to partner. Let's define the questions, all that. Like there's
Interesting.
the whole process gets set out. And the trouble is there tends to be a power imbalance. So you've got managers and
Yeah.
leaders treating talent acquisition as an admin function rather than actually they're the people that recruit the people and decide the fate of the company.
Yeah.
Somewhere we've
So
forgotten
that's
that.
super interesting.
So
So just to pause on that for a second. So we're obviously
yeah,
thinking about our platform and
yeah, of course.
where we want to take it in the
Yeah, I
next.
just made it all about me.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. No, I actually want to interview you on this podcast, but I think do we actually think the recruiters need to be like really elevated. It's like they're
Mhm,
the absolute like
mhm.
critical function. We think about it like they're the sales team, like they're the one
Yeah.
going out and are they enabled with the right products, with the right information, the right content? Like we have a lot of recruiters diving in and saying we want to grab all these beautiful vouch stories so that we can bring them
Yeah.
into our process and our content.
Hmm.
So that I guess that hiring manager recruiter interaction, do you see that commonly broken, or do you
Hmm.
think it's just yeah? I'd love to learn
Well,
like what.
worldwide commonly. And I talk to other people and they're all saying they're hearing similar things. So if I explain the 2020s, which I genuinely think is a dumpster fire for talent acquisition, they were obviously fired, rehired for all that massive overhiring in 2021,
Yeah.
2022. And as I said, we're about 12 months ahead of what happened in Australia. Then they were all let go again. And then they're kind of been rehired. And what's happened is they haven't, like if I was speaking at In-House Recruitment Live and I asked the room, how many of you know a really good director of or head of talent acquisition who's looking for work? And every hand went up.
Right.
So they have rehired cost effectively. So they don't necessarily have leaders who are as strong as they were in 2019. So this new function isn't being allowed to develop. So it's massively underfunded, undervalued, unsupported. I'm seeing that a lot across the board. Not in every company, of course, but I am seeing it, and I'm seeing massive burnout because they're
Yeah.
firefighting, and they're being treated as an admin cost center with the whole threat of, well, we'll just replace you with AI hanging over their heads. And the HR tech vendors allowed, they've got bigger budgets. So it's it's
Yeah.
quite
Wow.
interesting what's going on. Yeah. So I think anything that you can do, or any vendor can do, to really support them and give them help to make their relationship with their managers better, because it
Yeah,
really does. If that's broken, the poor job seekers, because there can be people who are interviewing just so the manager can work out who they need to hire, and that's
yeah,
like, that's
it's
wrong.
wild.
Yeah,
Yeah,
or
super
they
interesting.
shouldn't be, they shouldn't be interviewing at all. I mean, you take a lot of these startups that they get a big chunk of cash and then hire, 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 and then they fail and
Yeah,
then they let them all go. It's like, come on, we're playing with people's
yeah,
lives here. So
yeah,
again, I mean, a really great recruiter would say, okay, have we looked internal first? Who can we promote and backfill? What happens in a downturn? And a lot of recruiters are scared to ask that question. So
interesting.
that's,
Has that always
yeah,
been the case, or is
no.
this like as the right? Okay,
2020s. There's a lot of job
yeah,
insecurity. There's a lot of, like I said, there's all these people. There are lots in TA that are out of work, which is just wrong. I mean,
yeah.
someone who's quoted in both of my books has been out of work for 7 months, and
Wow,
I can't get
that's
over it. He's so good, and I'm just like, how is that possible? But
crazy,
he is so good. So it's, yeah, it's all a
crazy.
bit messed up, but it's kind of you're cutting in the wrong place. So, but
Yeah, I think
you
about
must
like
see
what
that in
like
comms though, right? Comms get cut as well,
yeah,
don't they?
for sure. I don't fully understand why that happens. Like I think a good CEO at a company probably looks at two things like talent density and how good the team is, and then obviously revenue, and they're sort of like very much interrelated. And I just think that
Yeah,
our sort of we luckily we see a lot of customers coming where that like the C level has like really bought into employer
gets it.
brand and EVP and advocacy and like our brand is everything. And like if we're going to compete with our 10 biggest competitors, we need to make sure that we have the greatest talent pipeline. And so I think that feeds is like really amazing.
Hmm.
A, it feeds an amazing talent pipeline. B, it
Yeah,
builds like a really beautiful employer brand, which I think has downstream impacts
exactly.
on your general brand. I think people want to buy
Yeah,
products that have a great
absolutely.
like reputation as a place to work. I think they're actually very much interrelated.
Oh, well,
And so I think, yeah,
Steve Gard, you'll have met Steve Gard, won't you, from the Circle Back Initiative, and the way that he can connect
yeah,
like a bad candidate experience to the cost of the bottom line as well. So
really,
it's like,
I
it's
actually haven't
not
seen that.
even just the people hired where it
Yeah,
impacts. Yeah, you totally need to talk to him.
100%.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah, well,
connect you
I think
afterwards.
I love that. Yeah, the candidates that don't get the role, and again, shout out to Jade and our team who sort of says this, they carry the brand with them as well forward. And
Oh
so I
yeah.
think that like that's like really interesting. So
It's
yeah,
even
obviously
that
we are
they're
big.
looking at it before, which you know, because you're feeding that information. It's like, who are all the people that looked at you and haven't applied? Because they looked at
Yeah,
you and they went, oh, that's really interesting. Then they went to Glassdoor, or worse, Blind app. I don't know if you've seen Blind,
yeah,
it's hilarious.
I
It's
have.
hilarious
Yeah,
and not,
yeah,
right? And then they go,
yeah,
ooh, not going there. And I'm not
yeah,
buying your products potentially. Or if they're in B2B, I'm not going to refer you. You don't know who people
yeah. It's
know. I
crazy
mean, yeah, it's very short-sighted of the leadership, but unfortunately it
for sure.
happens. Yeah.
Yeah,
So what is on the roadmap as you look into, we're at that time of the year, aren't we?
yes,
2025.
yeah.
Things
We'll
can only
see.
be better. It can only be better. I
Yeah,
see
yeah.
green
I feel
shoots
very
here. I definitely see it getting better here. So,
really that's good. I mean, hopefully we feel some downstream impact of that. I think like
mm,
Australia always feels relatively insulated and bubbly because it's like this really beautiful island, and you sort of get this, as you say, a wave that happens.
yeah.
But I mean, for us, like we obviously investing in a few different areas. So one of which
Mm,
is we've invested a lot in sort of like we've had a lot of feedback that editing is very tedious. So editing content takes a long
oh,
time. It's
yes.
like very, very difficult to pull out the best components. So we've invested a lot of
Hmm.
time in the last 6 months in actually building like a number of algorithms where you can prompt and say like I'm looking for this clip and we can pull that out for you. And it works
Oh,
really,
that's
really
so
well.
cool.
So like
Because
we
that's my
basically we
issue
think
with,
about
oh, sorry. Sorry, we're excited.
no, no, go for it.
That's my issue with the Lights at Opus clip. So I have all these videos and I go chuck it in there and then it spits out something I don't want. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
I wanted that bit. And then I might as well just go
yeah.
find it manually myself, which takes forever. So
It does take a
that's
long
really
time.
good that you can actually say, oh God, Gary and I were talking and we said this.
Yeah,
I can
based
go
upon
find that.
keywords. Yeah, so
Yeah,
we think about that a lot. We,
that's so cool.
little things like, yeah, even on that problem, we transcribe all the content in the library, and then you can actually just highlight like trim by transcription. So you can trim a clip out from Vouch with transcriptions, and like it's much easier to read this stuff than trim through a traditional timeline editor. So that's the editing
Yeah,
component, and then there's a lot more
so
that we
cool.
think about there. But for us also, it's like our actual one thing we've spent a ton of time in the last 6 months is talking to these employer brand and recruitment marketing teams who are often just teams of one, two, three
Yeah.
people, like serving a huge, huge organization. And they're like, hey, listen, like I'm manually pulling all of this great stuff out of Vouch and giving it to my recruitment team. So they're enabling their talent team with all this great
Hmm.
content. But they're doing it very manually. So like taking links out of Vouch or videos and putting it into sheets or like different document formats. And so we
Hmm.
are in the midst of building what we're calling kind of like our recruiter enablement play, which is the ability to
Perfect.
basically pick up, yeah, recruiters to come in, basically search, prompts, edit, do all those things they need to do, but stay on brand, which is important for the
Yeah.
recruitment marketing and employer brand teams. And so they'll be able to come into recruiters at any company will come into Vouch and pull content from the library as part of a brief for a role that they're working on. And then they'll be able to go and say to those candidates, like, we think that having the right content is kind of like, as I said, a sales team. So
Yeah.
providing the right assets to recruiters to go and recruit and then provide a really good candidate experience with that content.
Yeah.
We think that's really important. And we are thinking about something with the hiring manager, which is why I was pinging those questions earlier. But
Yeah.
how do we enable a
It's more
really
people
easy,
believe the managers more as well, like
yeah,
rather than the
yeah,
recruiter, which is fair because
totally.
the
So like,
manager's doing the job. The manager can explain the job better.
correct. We also think about that
Hopefully.
transfer of information, right? Like that
Yeah.
hiring manager, how do they get the info to the recruiter? Is there a way that we can record that and then actually create
Hmm.
really interesting insights out of that, or at least summarize it and allow a recruiter to take
Yeah.
that information and use it? So yeah, lots for next year, but it's very much focused around that recruiter and sort of employer brand relationship.
We should talk about that because there's a way to actually improve what recruiters are doing at the same time as getting the right, like getting those nuggets. There's a
Yeah,
brilliant question in this shameless plug again, from
it's so
Debbie
fun.
East today. Yeah, I know. It's just in case they miss the color.
Love it.
I don't know what color my memoir is going to be because I'm gradually getting brighter. It's like it's getting bit
Yeah, where do
ridiculous
you go
here.
from yellow? Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know. It's quite worrying. Maybe I go black.
rainbow.
I go
Yeah,
right back the other extreme of the wheel. The Debbie Easterday asks her managers. So she's actually staffing her agency, but she asked them if you were hiring somebody that you love, like a loved one, what would you warn them about? So it's like
that's a great
questions like
question.
that, and then they say something, and actually. That's a great thing to have. Now, it mightn't seem the
Totally.
opposite of advocacy, but people would deselect. Like if
Yeah,
somebody had told you you're going to come and work in Soho and yeah, it's going to be great drinking culture, but you're going to work 18-hour days, you might
yeah,
have gone, well, hang on a minute. How am I going to see London? How am I going to travel? How am I going
yeah,
to like, I'll be
yeah,
tired, and you might have gone, no, it's not for me. Or you might have
yeah,
gone, I'll jump right in rather than
yeah.
you start and hey, by the way, you're finishing at midnight tonight. You're like, what? you
Yeah,
know?
it's 100%. I think
So,
like you have to filter out who's right for the organization as well. So sometimes like we hear this a lot with startups. Like startups will say, look, we are like we work a ton of hours, like we're sort of building this thing for the next year. Like you need to
mhm,
opt into that. It's going to mean these things, and the
exactly.
right people get on the bus. And so I agree with
Yeah.
that. You need to self-select for what works and what doesn't.
And I think with a startup as well, like it's a risk. Like I think there needs to be
Yeah,
more emphasis on that. Did we talk about
yeah,
this before or on? I can't remember that whole overhiring because of the VC, the way it's set up. It's kind of
yeah. Listen, like
crazy. I think that
even
was before we came online.
yeah, it was. I mean, look, even Vouch, we in 2021, 2022, you scale up really, really quickly, and you think you're resourcing for a certain growth period, and it doesn't necessarily happen, and it
Hmm.
happens all the time. Startups, it's very, very difficult. But I do think people are coming to that period now a bit more aware of what a sustainable growth curve can look like. You can grow quickly without sort
Mm,
of like throwing tons and tons of people at that
yeah,
challenge. And I think startups in particular have come out better for it.
hope
I
so.
think they've learned that, yeah, like I think that they've probably built into their hiring process, I hope, some like mechanisms which filter for the right people.
Yeah.
Even about we've thought about like what does burnout look like? How do we make sure that we're allowing like tons and tons within reason, like for a small state startup,
Mm,
but like tons and tons of time for people to have balance, see family,
yeah,
look after their health. Like that stuff becomes really important, I think, in these
yeah.
really fast moving
I,
jobs.
I think going forward as well, because there's still, I mean, I don't know if this is a UK, Europe attitude. Actually, it's probably coming from the US. But, I do, when I'm talking to other vendors, they're always saying all they hear all the time is do more with less. Like,
Yeah,
to what
that's brutal.
point? To the point
Yeah,
where if you've got talent acquisition burning up, but they're the people doing, I mean, they're doing employee advocacy as well, aren't they? Because they're the ones
For
talking to
sure.
the candidates. But they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, come and work for us.
Yeah.
We're dying
I
here.
mean,
Come and work for us.
they are the brand, right? Like they are
Yeah,
literally the face of communication with these new recruits. And so
yeah.
it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that you would undervalue that role. I think it's really important.
Yeah. So what's been your biggest aha moment with this? Have you had like I know you don't name clients obviously, but like a big client success story that you're really proud of that was maybe unexpected, or maybe the opposite, a big
Yeah.
learning where they did something you're like, oh my God, what'd you do that for? Has there been,
Yeah, I think like there's been I mean, definitely a few aha moments for us on the journey.
yeah,
Um,
which is, I mean,
yeah,
it's part of being a founder. I've learned a
totally.
lot in
Yeah, I
15
think,
years, lots of pivots.
yeah, correct. Um, yeah, endless. But I think, I mean, the biggest thing for us has been like probably the uptake from demographics and generations and like cohorts
Yeah.
that we didn't necessarily expect in the platform. So, there are like,
Had you written we oldies off or something? You thought we'd just,
no, like that, yeah, that, but also like even like, people that are working we have like a pub group, like pub groups that use the platform, and like those
yeah,
people in pubs are like recording incredible content and they're very passionate about like
yeah.
working at these venues, and like they're sort of
Mm,
taking people on tours on camera and like all these sort of like things where it's like, whoa, like that's kind of unexpected. We thought it would kind of be like very
mm,
traditional type, like to camera type stuff, but people want to show off where they work in their organizations. And I think we've seen a lot of that happen in these deskless workers and sort of pub groups and
yeah.
people that aren't in corporate jobs. But yeah, there is
Because that's a
honestly like an
community. I mean,
older,
the pubs have a community of people that comes together. It's all
correct,
human connection, isn't it? So I'm not surprised they're quite
correct.
proud of where they work.
Yeah, and we
Um,
see some like older organizations, like 100+ year old organizations, like particularly in the
yeah,
States, these big sort of manufacturing companies. And like we can name some of them as like, for instance, Clorox is one. So
yeah.
their team, they did a sort of like create a lot of content about this. They do that, regularly, but their team created this video around everyone in the organization that had worked there for 25+ years. And there were
Cool.
all these incredible stories from people that had been there for 25 years. And it was kind of like talking through their journey. And like, it was almost this like
Wow.
cathartic camera moment. And then like this,
Yeah.
obviously, because it was so raw and like real, people were like, I've spent my life here. Like I met my wife here and like all these amazing things. And so I think when you see that storytelling come out, that was like a big whoa. Like for us, that's the impact of this can be really huge, because then that is a
Yeah.
beautiful way of sort of telling the story of that company, which makes very functional household goods, right? So
Yeah. And I think what's also really lovely is that the company has stayed and taken care of its people. That in itself, compared
yeah,
to a lot of
yeah,
big corps, is really beautiful, isn't it? And
yeah,
yeah,
I think it's
imagine.
important.
Imagine being at the same company for 25 years. My God.
I mean, well,
I know. It was unfathomable. But I mean, because I'm that bit older than you, when I left school, it was job for life.
yeah,
I looked for a job in a newspaper on a Sunday. There wasn't
really,
transparency. There weren't videos, employee advocacy. We couldn't be talking to the other side of the world on a video chat. Like,
yeah,
no, yes, really, I'm that old. But it was, yeah, I mean, this is in the robot proof recruiter. Everyone talks about, oh, AI has changed this and this is stuff. And I'm going, no, the biggest game change was the internet. And it will never be anything else but the internet. That was the thing that
yeah,
took away from agency their little black book of contacts and gave it to companies so that they could directly contact people. And that was the
yeah.
big
That is a
start of the
huge
change.
step change.
And then you could go online and you could search, founder jobs, London, enter whatever, right?
Yeah,
Poof, there's all these
huge.
jobs. Oh, let me go and look at what the companies are like. And it was like without the internet, you couldn't do that. And that was actually the start of all of this mattering. Because when
Yeah,
I tell this story, sorry, it's a bit gross what I'm about to say, but I worked at the National Australia Bank, and the first branch I ended up in was, I won't say, I think it was like Ryde or somewhere. And no, it was Epping. And the second in charge of that branch was so stressed that she would be sick at lunch, like she'd vomit every lunch because the manager
oh,
was such an a-hole. And you stayed because you couldn't see all the jobs. You
yeah.
never left your job without another job. You had a job for life. It's like,
You just put up with it. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
in my
gnarly.
30 something years career, I was reduced a few years off.
Started when you were
It's
six.
changed.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much.
yeah,
Nothing to do with the selfie light. Um, but it has changed. And I'm really glad though I've witnessed it, like to see that change. I'm glad I've lived through
yeah.
that. So
On
it's
on
been quite
AI on that,
amazing.
like I agree with you. That transition, it's interesting you say take the
Yeah,
power out of like the little black books of recruitment agencies into
yeah.
people's hands to go and connect directly. I think
Well,
that's really
everyone's
interesting.
online, right? There's like what are
Yeah,
there's 8 billion of us and 5 billion are online. It's quite extraordinary.
yeah. So I think that is a huge step change. On AI, from a canvas perspective, surely the experience of like AI, someone finds you, or sorry, if
Mm,
AI finds your profile, sends you an automated message, you just go
mm.
into kind of this like full automation system. And I don't know if I know the answer to this question yet, but is that better for the candidate? I don't think so. I think like the fact that someone has identified you as a human and said, hey, I think you would be a great fit here. Here's the reasons why.
Yeah.
Like that human connection surely adds weight to getting headhunted or poached from
Uh,
somewhere. The automation of it
yeah.
doesn't feel like it helps a candidate either, right? So I don't know.
Mm. I was having this chat with a it was really lovely actually. It's really refreshing. So they do this company does conversational AI. And
Yeah,
that can be really like you were talking about your deskless employees. So it could be really great for them,
yeah,
for being able to chat with HR. I've got this problem, blah, blah, blah. So really, really helpful because a lot of them don't necessarily use recruiters to recruit. It can be the manager of the store, right? So, but he was saying, I like it's going too far. I had another vendor who wanted me to have a job interview with his robot that he's created. I went, no, because I watched a
yeah,
video of it and felt nauseous. But
yeah,
again, aging myself
yeah,
significantly, I was working in the bank when they brought in teller machines. And I remember the engineers saying to me, you're going to lose your job. And yeah, there are far fewer tellers in the bank, but there are still tellers in the bank.
yeah,
For a mundane cash transaction, there are still tellers in the bank. There are still, even though
100%.
there's self checkout, there's still cashiers in the supermarket. So it's like, you know, really. So yes,
Yeah,
I feel we could be a whole load more transparent. The fact I can stand on the train station, know exactly what minute my train's turning up. I know when it's going to arrive at its destination. That's changed in the last 20 years I've been here. So why can't we have that transparency through the applicant tracking system? Your CV's
yeah,
been reviewed. It's here, it's here, it's here. Great. That would help people because they feel
yeah.
like
Okay.
it's going
Yeah,
into a
some
black hole.
clarity.
But do I
Yeah,
want to be interviewed by a robot about my career? No. I want to speak
yeah.
to a human being. You know, that's how I feel about
Super interesting.
it.
It's a very
So,
interesting. I mean, we'll know, right? In the next 12 months, we'll know if these things land.
well, yeah, we already had that one with the head. Why would anyone want to have an interview with a creepy head? I don't know. We're all different, but it's really interesting if you look at recruiting hell on Reddit. I don't know if you read that, but it's totally
Oh,
well
I actually haven't read
anti work.
Recruiting Hell, but I've heard it's very good.
It's yeah, it's entertaining and not because it's like, oh my God,
Yeah,
that's somebody's life. And then you're laughing. You're like, I shouldn't be laughing at somebody's life.
yeah.
But
Sounds like
people
Reddit.
who have some neurodiversion say, well, like if I tick that box, what does that mean? What, yeah, am I going to rule
Mm,
myself out? And people get really, really stressed. Whereas if they're talking to a human being, they can see their
yeah,
reaction if they ask a question, how it
yeah.
lands. Whereas
So
I'm
interesting.
ticking a box. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think we've gone too
Keep the
far.
human in the mix.
Yeah. I like what you got planned because it sounds very human. Like it's very much like,
Yeah.
and I like that your next step is actually to get the managers. If you get your managers and leaders speaking directly to job applicants, I think it will really help companies.
Yeah,
So
even if it's like some context given up front, like it's just like I'm hiring for this role. I mean, we already have customers doing that today where they are
yeah,
sending vouch link out to hiring managers or even teams or like potential managers of the
yeah,
person and sort of saying like record something for these candidates. And it might even be when the candidate's in the funnel already, they're sort of
which
like,
is fine.
it's
Yeah.
like providing like a really lovely experience. And we just try and make that like very easy. If the companies want to do this, we should make it as easy as possible. That's how we think about it.
Yeah. But that's also good because sometimes I'm sure you hear this, oh, well, what happens if the person leaves? And we've done all these
Yeah.
videos. It's like, well, actually, if they're just being used for sending out to candidates, it's not so bad.
Sure. We have a solve
Yeah.
for that as well. We actually, it's a very common problem that where if they've got hundreds of videos recorded by employees that have left, we actually just we sync up with whatever tool they're using, like for Active Directory, and so
Yeah.
we'll then mark the video and say like, Gary's left or Katrina's left, and then they can
Yeah.
choose whether they want to keep that content in the library or whether they want to remove it. So it's funny you mention
Oh,
that because it's
very cool. See, that's a good use of
yeah,
technology.
yeah, yeah,
Big
yeah. Just try
problem
and make life a bit
gone.
easier. Yeah,
Yeah, because you know it's going to get sent out, don't you? Be like, here's a
yeah,
video of
exactly.
Gary. He's like, and you're like, no, he's left. He's gone
He's
somewhere else.
gone. No, it's super common, and it's yeah, we
That's
actually just
brilliant.
rolled it out a few months ago. Yeah.
Brilliant. I love that you're really listening to your customers. That's really cool.
Yes, I think it's something we like very laser focused on the whole team from
Yeah,
engineering to leadership.
that's cool. So if somebody wants a demo or to talk to you, what's the best?
Yeah.
Where
So the
should I
easiest way
send them?
probably just the website. So the URL is
Yeah,
vouch4for.com. If you search vouch, like employer brand, it will come up. I think so. We have
yeah.
like a sort of 5 minute demo on the website you can check out if you don't want to chat to one of the team. But otherwise,
Chat
just
to the
yeah, just
team,
come in,
obviously,
chat to the
after
team.
hearing
Yeah,
this. I
obviously,
mean,
be human. Yeah.
yeah,
Or yeah, or message me on LinkedIn. We'd love
yeah,
to take you through the product. So I think we
amazing.
we tend to do a demo that's kind of like 30 minutes, pretty immersive, and we talk through what's going on in the business and see if we can add some strategic value during that as well
Yeah.
versus just like showcasing the product. But yeah,
Well,
we'd love to connect with everyone.
you don't just dive in. You actually check if it would help. Wow,
We
there we
yeah,
go.
we do it.
Kidding.
Exactly right. Exactly.
It makes more sense, doesn't it? Well, thank you,
Yeah.
Gary. I really appreciate your time, particularly at this hour. It's very much appreciated.
Yeah, thanks, Katrina. Thanks for having me.